Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Treasured Wellness. I am Michelle, and it is so good to have you here with us. Again, we are having a powerful conversation as we are going to really talk about how you can steward your wellness through fatigue conditions. And that involves listening to the signals that your body is telling you. My special guest today is Miguel Bautista. Miguel is the founder of CFS Recovery, where he helps people overcome chronic fatigue syndrome, long COVID, and other related fatigue conditions. What sets Miguel apart is that he is fully recovered from severe illness and he built a clear, structured recovery system based on nervous system regulation, not quick fixes or guesswork. You know, I'm all about that. And today he has helped thousands of people worldwide move from surviving to fully living again. Yes. It was such a joy to come onto his fantastic podcast called CFS Recovery. I highly recommend you check it out. And I am super excited to have his insight and expertise today to pour into you all. So, welcome, Miguel.
Welcome, welcome. Well, it's great to be here, Michelle. First off, I just want to say thank you so much for having me on. I've listened to your show and what you're building here. It's something really special. And I just want to acknowledge you for that because I know what you're doing isn't easy as a content creator myself. I know it takes a lot of time, a lot of energy and hard work, but from that, you're creating a massive impact with hundreds of shows. So I'm honored to be a part of it. And last thing before I jump in, for everybody listening, do me a huge favor, go leave a 5-star rating and review on whatever platform you're tuning in from so that Michelle can impact even more people. I already did mine over on Apple Podcasts the other day, so come join me. But
Awesome.
diving into it, yeah, who am I? My name is Miguel. Like Michelle said, I run CFS Recovery. Recovering from mysterious, debilitating symptoms like brain fog, where no matter how much people sleep, they wake up feeling mentally drained, and fatigue, where no matter how much they rest, they still feel like a zombie, along with dozens of other potential symptoms. A lot of times it can leave us feeling really frustrated, sometimes even hopeless. And what people want is they want to get back to who they used to be. And many people who are sick, they just struggle finding answers that actually work while also being told it's all in their head. And so they can end up trapped in this cycle of really just surviving instead of thriving and losing years of their life to an illness that nobody seems to understand. So what I do along with my team is we help them fully recover using nervous system based approaches along with neuroplasticity so they can get their lives back and live as the 2.0 version of themselves. And just so people have some context, I've worked with thousands of individuals. We have over 50 hours of recovery case studies and just helped a lot of people really get back to fully living the lives they thought they lost forever. And I myself, I'm actually fully recovered from my own health issues. So I actually dealt with 50 plus symptoms myself. I was bedridden for several months straight, being spoon fed by my grandma, couldn't roll over in bed, couldn't shower. At my worst, I was actually hospitalized for 2 months straight. And I had to learn how to use a wheelchair and then a walker and then learn how to stand on my own 2 feet again. So I really had to build my life from scratch, but now I don't have any symptoms, haven't had symptoms for years. But what I'm most proud of is watching people who have recovered just cry tears of gratitude for being able to feel wind on their face again, to be able to spend time at the dinner table during Christmas or birthdays without all the pain and fatigue and other symptoms, and really just be a functioning member of society. And you know what I find interesting, Michelle? People see my life now and they say, wow, you do so much. How do you work so much? How do you exercise and do all this travel? You run this international health organization. What's the secret sauce? Like, what's the secret medication or the magic silver bullet? But I'll tell you one thing, Michelle, there is no one exact thing, but there's a few things. And my life wasn't always how it is today. I went from zero to hero, I would say, and surviving to thriving. But today, I'm just very grateful to be living my best life. It's been a long, long journey to get here, which I'm happy to dive into.
Yeah, and that actually, you have such an important story. And so what you just said, I want to ask, what are you treasuring right now in this season of life?
Right now, I am treasuring impact, I would say. And what do I mean by that? When I was sick, this actually goes back to when I was bedridden. I would always tell myself, if by some miracle I recovered, that I would go back and try to help as many people as I could. Because for me, recovery, at one point, it wasn't even possible. And I think for a lot of people right now, they might have been dealing with this for so long that that future of thriving health, like being able to run and exercise and travel, just have that vibrant energy, it can start to feel more and more out of reach. And so it can leave people feeling hopeless sometimes. And that's where I was at. I mean, I'd be telling myself or asking myself things like, am I ever going to get better again? Am I ever actually going to have my life back? Or is this how it is forever? And so I remember multiple times making a promise to myself, if I ever get my life back and recover, I want to help other people. And so I think that's what I really treasure right now is being able to work and build CFS Recovery and just help as many people as possible.
Yeah, I love that. And we all have a story that drives our passion for the work that we do and helping people to heal and be well and recover. So let's go back. Let's go back to those dark days and weeks, months, right? Where you were officially diagnosed with chronic illness, chronic fatigue, 50 symptoms. Goodness, how did that time in your life lead you? Like, talk about that time in your life, some of the emotions that you were feeling, all of that. But then how did it lead you to desire to say, hey, well, I'm going to get out of this and I am going to help so many people to be well and with the specific work that you're doing today?
Hmm. Yeah, it was quite the crazy journey. So I think it's important to kind of paint out how I even got there and kind of, I guess like you asked, what was happening during that time? What was it like? There were a lot of mistakes that I made that kept the illness alive, that kept it going, that kept me on the downward spiral. And here's what I see people do over again. And I want to be clear, I did all of this myself. So I'm not judging anybody here. This is the path most of us take because it's all we know. At first, I was chasing diagnosis because I was just working so much, 12 hours a day, 5 days a week, minimum as a personal trainer. I also put a lot of internal pressure on myself. A lot of people who get long COVID and CFS, type A personalities, perfectionists, they have difficulty setting boundaries. And that can lead to them just stacking on all these stressors on their nervous system. They may not realize that's actually happening until the body starts giving them signals. And those signals is basically the body trying to get them to slow down or, hey, let's take our foot off the gas pedal here. It's getting, the wheels are getting a little shaky. It's like if you're driving way too fast, things start to fall apart. And so you can only redline the engine so long. That's what I was doing. And then I started getting headaches, insomnia, anxiety, palpitations. And so usually in most cases, you start chasing the diagnosis, right? So people go from specialist to specialist, hoping somebody will finally tell them what's wrong. You go to the rheumatologist, the neurologist, endocrinologist, infectious disease, you get the blood work, MRIs, sleep studies, all of that, and the tests keep coming back, quote unquote, normal. And so now they don't just feel sick, you start to feel crazy. I felt like I was going crazy. Like maybe I was making this up. Maybe this is a nightmare. So that can be a pretty dark place to be. And then what happens after that is, people start just throwing supplements and treatments at it. Hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars or tens of thousands on things that promise to fix the mitochondria or detox their liver or heal their gut. And maybe those do work. Maybe they actually get a little boost for a week, but then they're right back to where they started or worse, right? Because now they've added this whole idea of nothing works for me to their belief system. And then usually what happens after that, the final thing is just trying to push through it. That's something I did for a really long time. You just try to, we have a term for it, white knuckle your way through it. Just mental toughness, push through. Or they force themselves to be positive, right? Or power through like you used to. and maybe I'll break out of this. But the body, it pushes back even harder. And one good day, like a lot of people, they get this little burst of energy or clarity and they say, okay, I'm going to cash in on this energy because I've been so patient for maybe the last few days or week. I deserve to go out and do that really fun thing or increase the activity. But, the nervous system sees that and it's just too much. And so sometimes they crash, sometimes they have a big flare up. And now they're terrified to try anything because they don't know what's going to set them off. And so that's where I was. And what really turned it around for me, there was actually a buildup to it. There's also a spiritual side to this. And I know a lot of the audience here, they're spiritual with the church and everything like that. When I was living with my grandparents, I was completely bedridden. They were very religious. They would pray over me every single night. They actually gave me the special crucifix that I would hold on to during my craziest flare-ups. So I'd just be hanging on for dear life, struggling to breathe, just like clutching this crucifix. And I remember my grandpa and grandma, every night they would pray over me and they would say, God, Lord, we're praying for a miracle. We know a miracle is coming. We know you can help Miguel. They called me Miggy. We know you can help Miggy. We know a miracle is coming. And so that went on for several months. And my biggest fear was losing any of my grandparents because they were old. My grandma was 75. My grandpa was like 80. And he, one day he's just wiping me down because he's helping me shower. He's brushing my teeth. He's bringing me food for several months. And he actually had a stroke and he passed away. And so that was, my nervous system was already maxed out. This took it to a whole nother level because I was holding his hand when he passed away. And I remember him saying, there's going to be a miracle. We're going to see you get better. We're going to play golf soon. And I was just so sad we won't be able to play it. But that pushed my nervous system into overdrive. And for the next about 1 week, I could not move. And then when I tried to move, it felt like I was being electrocuted. And I couldn't eat. My dad would have to blend food and I'd have to drink rice and tilapia. I remember that very clearly. Couldn't roll over in bed. So eventually we called the ambulance. And this is about 4.5 years into my illness. I'd seen doctors. I'd seen specialists. I had, all these different supplements and medications I was on, but I was getting worse. And so I go to the hospital. I was in the ICU for 1 month and I thought my life was over. Like I would just look at the ceiling, 2 a.m., not being able to sleep or move. I was 22 years old. And these thoughts would be going through my head, the things that people think that they would never say out loud of like, why am I here? What is the point of all of this? Like, I'm just here melting away. I'm just a burden to everybody else. But after a month in the ICU, they said, Miguel, your tests are fine. Like, you're not going to die. You're in really bad shape. We could see that. You're in pain, but you're not going to die. So we don't have any more space in the ICU for you. So either we can send you home or we have extra rooms in the psych ward if you want to stay there. And I was like, psych ward? I'm not crazy though. Like I can talk, I can think straight. They said, no, we know that. But if you can't move, if you don't want to be going back and forth to the hospital from your house, that's the only other option we have. And you'd be able to work with another doctor there. Because if your body is fine, there's got to be something going on with the brain. And I said, you know what? I don't have any other option right now. I can't go back home. So I said, okay. But anyways, that's when things really turned around for me. This changed the entire trajectory of my recovery because the doctor, the psychiatrist, I'm still friends with him to this day. He looked at me and said, Miguel, I looked at your records and your books. It's a whole stack of tests. He said, I know exactly what's going wrong with you. You're going to be okay. And I know how to fix this. You just have a hypersensitive nervous system. And we could dive deeper into that, but essentially for the next month, he would draw these diagrams on papers, teach me about what's happening in my body, where the symptoms are coming from, why they're not going away. And within a week, I was able to go from bedridden to sitting up in a wheelchair. Within a week of that, I was using a walker, then learned to walk. And after a month of working with him, it was actually my 23rd birthday, they released me back into the world. And that was like the 2.0 version of Miguel stepping back into the world. And that's kind of when my life after, well, I was still recovering, but that was like my second chance at life. But that's where things really turned around for me, because ever since then, it wasn't a perfect line straight up, but I was making more progress in 1 week, like week by week, than I did in the prior 6 months. And so it was just exponential once these concepts clicked.
Wow, that is incredible. And that is a testament to the power of how the body is so brilliantly designed and created to work all body systems together when the support is given. And I love how you're talking about the nervous system, how that's your nervous system is vital for to be working properly is vital for healing and recovery. And I love that so much because there's so many. We've got chronic fatigue, adrenal fatigue. We have long COVID now that we're dealing with. We have chronic SIRS, chronic inflammatory response syndrome. We've got all of these syndromes that are related around fatigue that are keeping people sick, stuck, and unsure and worried and maybe even in fear. And when we understand how the nervous system is affected and impacted, it can change everything. So I'd like you to talk more about that because the women that are coming to me, they are high functioning, they are getting things done, but they are doing it all through a lens of exhaustion, right? And
Yeah.
it's starting to take a toll on her physically, emotionally, mentally. And really, we get to this midlife stage of life, and everything starts to seem a bit too much. It just seems like we are not handling things like we used to in our 30s. And I know I felt like everything was hitting me really hard during my second fatigue crisis. I mean, and things were like life was rough during that 3-year fire, but we continue on, we push on because we don't let life stop us or get in the way of what we're doing. But this mindset, this push through mindset is keeping us and our nervous system stressed. And many women's nervous system is on high alert. So we know that that impacts all other body systems. So will you speak to how stress is so tangibly connected to chronic fatigue conditions and how that nervous system plays such an important role?
Absolutely. Yeah. Stress, I mean, that is everything, right? And I'm sure if you guys are listening to this podcast, you've heard our previous episodes. I'm sure stress is covered quite a bit. So I think it's important to understand, kind of like everything you said, your body, it's not failing you, it's really protecting you. And that stress, we all have a stress threshold, right? Everybody's got a different level, and you can train that too. It changes over time. But once you reach that threshold, then that's where your body starts to send you signals to slow you down, to try and protect you, right? And the lived experience for a lot of women, past their 40s, because we work with a lot of them as well, you've been the rock for everybody around you for decades. You raised some kids, right? You held down the career. Maybe you served at church. You were the first person that people called on when they needed something. So you may find yourself, it's Wednesday afternoon, you're either sitting in your car or you just did some certain chores around the house and you just feel completely drained, right? You feel like you're running on fumes. You made it through Monday, you push through Tuesday, now your tank is empty coming up on Wednesday and Thursday. Ultimately, that leaves you feeling like a stranger in your own body. Like the woman you used to be with all this energy just disappeared, right? And nobody around you really understands because you still look fine on the outside. So there's this like deep loneliness on top of the physical exhaustion. And that's a way that the stress can compound, because a lot of times we can start to feel these physical symptoms, but then it leads into the emotions. It leads into your identity. It leads into the expectations you always had on yourself that maybe you might not be able to meet now. And you probably tell yourself things like, maybe this is just what getting older feels like. Like, I should be grateful. Other people have it worse. Or if I just pushed harder, I could snap out of this. Or maybe on the other side, it's like, maybe there's something seriously wrong with me that nobody can find, and this is just how it's going to be. And so I think education is a huge part of solving this, just understanding why we're feeling so run down. And the way we help people solve that is teaching them about this stuff, teaching them that the body is doing exactly what it's designed to do. The nervous system, it's just been carrying around too much stress for too long. And even with stress, let's talk about that. I actually look at stress as any kind of stimulation. So it's not always a bad thing. Right. You could have good stimulation happening. Like if you go to a concert with flashing lights, that's really fun if you really enjoy music, but do that for like 2 days straight. Yeah, that's going to be stressful on the nervous system. Right. So essentially, it's when you stack all this stimulation, and it's not just physical, it's the mental pressure you put on yourself, it's the emotions, it's the caregiving to the family, it's the hormonal shift, all of these things, it eventually can hit a threshold. And once it hits that, now it's stuck in survival mode. And the fatigue, the brain fog, the crashing, they're just signals. It's your nervous system asking you to slow down. And most of the time, people are used to hearing, just push through it, or take the supplement, or try yoga. Generic advice that treats the symptoms, but it completely ignores the source. So that's where we really try to address the root cause of these things. And a lot of times it's not even adding new things. A lot of times it's looking at somebody's life and looking at where the energy leaks are, right? So I would like to ask people, if you change your perspective on this, what if your worst symptoms weren't signs that something was permanently wrong or extremely wrong, but signals that your body was actually trying to protect you? And once you can reframe it as that your body's trying to help you versus attack you, it completely changes the way you see the symptoms, and you can start working with your body versus against it.
I love that so much because that's something I walk through with my clients and in my programs too, like changing your stress perception, changing how you are perceiving the stress. Is it an emergency or is it an urgency? There's a difference. But the problem is we are living in a state of it's an emergency. We are being chased consistently by that lion or that bear, and our nervous system does not have time to slow down, catch up, take a breath and just really start to recover from that. Our ancestors who were literally being chased by a bear, they had that time to allow their body to decompress and to re-regulate again. And we're not doing that in this fast-paced society that we live in. And, having a phone as an appendage is making that sense of heightened awareness even worse. So I love that you talked about that. I do want to address the brain, because the brain is so connected also to these fatigue conditions, right? We've got brain fog, we have trouble thinking clearly, a slower recall, more anxiety. These are all, and there's so many more symptoms that are showing, the body is showing us how it's struggling through chronic or adrenal fatigue, including long COVID, including SIRS, chronic inflammatory. And so as the women listening, they are owning their wellness. They are learning how to truly steward their wellness for a lifetime of impact. What would you say, Miguel, to the woman who feels like she has tried everything to help herself feel better, to regain energy? Maybe she's tried the 15 supplements and all of these programs. Aside from quitting her career that she loves, right, and moving away to a deserted island, her body's still needing more care and attention. What steps should she take? What would you say to her that she can do that is doable for her life, that is so busy, packed out, and scheduled that she really does enjoy?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's so many answers that come to mind. I'm thinking of all the most powerful stories of women we work with who've been able to turn their lives around. What did they do? So there's a handful of things, but I can narrow it down to a few. So some practical steps women can take. I think, especially if women have kids, This may not apply to everybody, but if they do have kids or they are a caretaker in the family, or there's a husband or a partner that they feel that obligation to take care of, that can be extra pressure that you're carrying around that you may not realize. I remember there's this one lady, she had 3 kids, and she saw that as, what is it called? It was basically, how do I say this? Not that the taking care of the kids were a chore, but she saw it as a barrier in the way of recovering, of like, I only have so much energy, but my kids take up all the energy. So how am I going to recover if I have kids? Or how am I going to recover if I have to take care of the husband? And so we can put a lot of pressure on ourselves to perform a certain way, but you'd be surprised at how supportive the family can be. Because once we got her to realize that, hey, you don't have to always cook every single day. You don't have to clean every single day. And the whole house doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. Like, it's okay if it's not perfect. It's okay if the beds aren't made ASAP every day at 9 a.m. And so when she started taking those expectations off, the family went with it very well. And they were like, hey, Mom, we'd love to help you. And same with the husband. Like, they want us to get better, right? They want you to get better. And so they're there to support you. So I think giving yourself the permission to dial things back a little bit in terms of like doing slightly less chores, doing slightly less cooking, they would understand, because this is just a temporary phase. It's not like you're being lazy or it's going to be like this forever. This will actually allow you to do more of the things you'd love to do, or more of those fulfilling things you'd like to do, like serving the family or whatever it is that you do. Dialing things back is actually going to boost your capacity. It's kind of like working out, right? You don't go into the gym and try to do 100 push-ups day one if it's your first day. If you did try to do that, you'll probably get injured. That's very similar to a woman trying to keep up with all of these different things, and then you kind of just tax your nervous system. You want to do it in short bursts. So in the gym analogy, you do 10 push-ups, maybe 20, then you get sore, then you take a break for 3 days or whatever. When you're feeling better, then you go back, because you actually give your nervous system space to adapt to that level of stimulus. So with women, dialing things back on the chore side of things, that's a huge one, but also not feeling guilty about it. That's a big one. I think that's even more important than the physical stuff, because a lot of times they can feel like they're not doing the best job as a mother or as a wife, and that can just eat away at them emotionally. I've seen it happen so many times. So if you can look at this, this slower period, this period of you doing less things or being quote unquote less productive because you're resting more, you want to see that rest as something that's actually productive. It's like a springboard, or I call it like the bow and arrow analogy. In order to shoot that arrow further, you actually have to pull back even more. So it feels like you're going backwards when you're slowing down a little bit, but that's going to launch you into the next level of health. So I think when it comes to chores, that's probably the biggest one. And in general, just looking at your calendar, looking at what are you doing physically and mentally. Those are the easiest things to spot. Physically is the easiest one first, because you can literally see what you're doing. Cognitively, it's a little bit harder because you can't see that, you can't track that. But like, how much screen time are you doing every day? What are you doing for work? How many to-do lists do you have running simultaneously? And then also emotionally, that's the third part. How are you feeling emotionally throughout the day? Not just with symptoms, but in general. When life throws you a curveball, when the kid spills something, or when you're in traffic or when you're driving and someone cuts you off, like, how does your nervous system respond to that? Is it on edge? And we want to look at what you're doing and see where we can add in some space in that. So physically, where can we add in scheduled breaks in your calendar, even just for 5 minutes? Sometimes that is all it takes for your nervous system to kind of hit the reset button. So adding in scheduled breaks throughout the day doesn't have to be much. It makes a big difference though. And then also look at cognitively, how much are you on your screen? How much are you working? Again, are you taking those breaks? If not, schedule it in, even for 2 minutes. That makes a big difference. And then on the emotional side of things, just being aware of how you feel in your body without judging it. Like, is your heart racing when you're thinking about having a certain conversation with somebody, or when you have a symptom come up, whether it's pain or brain fog? How do you view that symptom? And also, is that causing an emotional reaction in your body? And sometimes it's not just fear of a symptom. Sometimes it's frustration. A lot of times it can be frustration. So what I always tell people is the more you can neutralize as much as possible, we're not robots, so we'll never completely neutralize it. The more you can neutralize emotions around symptoms and life in general, or bring it back to baseline, the better, and the more regulated your nervous system is. Like, we all know somebody who they can be driving, they could get cut off, and it's like, oh, whatever. Okay. I got stressed out for maybe half a second, and now I'm back to enjoying the music. Whereas another person, someone cuts them off, the whole day is ruined, maybe their whole week even, right? So you want to ideally lean towards the person who can get back to baseline within a few seconds. And sometimes depends on the day too. Sometimes, I mean, I don't really get cut off, but if it does happen, I'll get mad, but I'll try to be aware about it so I can bring it back to baseline.
Yeah, it goes back to, is it an emergency or an urgency, right? It's
Yes.
all of that, because I remember when I was working so hard and caretaking and going through some stress, a bunch of stress, and I would get cut off, and oh my goodness, like my nervous system, like phew, my blood pressure would go up, and I would usually on the way to work, right? And so then I would be walking into my day that way, and I had to do a lot to bring that back down. And when I recovered, it was no big deal. So it's literally, it is so true if your nervous system is on high alert. I love the practicality that you brought to us. And I love the fact that you talked about chores, because this is a really, really big thing for women. They're generally the ones that are taking care of the home. Hopefully there's some delegation involved, but that is one of the things that we talk about too, because what can you delegate? What can you delay? What can you delete? Right? And so some of these things involve, let me hire somebody to come clean my house once a month. Little chores like that, and these are things that I've walked through with clients, and I've had to figure out myself as well, because we all have the same amount of time. We all have 24 hours in a day. And when we need to take some more time into recovering, we need to figure out what can we then delegate? What can we delete? How can we get these breaks that are so powerful in our schedule to help us in our recovery? Again, because we cannot go move onto a deserted island for months until we feel better. So that was very practical. I love the doable practicality of that, because we need to be able to continue to live this life that we love, not hang out in our diagnosis or the way our symptoms are making us feel, but look at it as it's information, it's data, it's our body speaking to us. So thank you for that. Do you have anything else that you want to share about that with long COVID or SIRS, or anything very specific to that? Any other insight?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to share some hope with people as well. I know one of the things that can keep people stuck is the constant Googling of symptoms and going down these rabbit holes. So if you're listening to this and you feel like you've spent more time Googling your symptoms than actually living your life, if you canceled plans at the last minute because you didn't know your body would cooperate and you're just going down all these rabbit holes, just know that there's such thing as very good rabbit holes. I think you're probably in a good rabbit hole right now listening to this podcast. This is one of those good ones because it's solution focused, right? There's not a lot of positivity around things like long COVID or CFS, but just know that despite what you're going through, it doesn't matter how long you've had this for or even how severe you are, right? We've seen people go from completely bedridden 4 years to literally skiing down a mountain with minimal to no symptoms within a year. I've seen people, I just did a recovery interview with someone who's 87 years old
Mm.
and she was in rough shape not even a year ago. Now she says she's the happiest she's ever been because a lot of those issues, she was dealing with it for many, many years, right? That's who she was. So there is absolutely the possibility of recovery. There's a lot of hope for it. And there is a way to get there. You know, it's not like 20 years ago where there weren't these recovery stories online or there weren't these different protocols you can follow, right? So no matter where you're at, even if it's like a very dark place you're in and you feel a little bit hopeless or you're getting really frustrated, feeling like you're kind of banging your head against the wall, I've been there. I've seen thousands of people who are there, but I've also seen them make it to the other side. And one thing you have to understand is like, once you get past this, your best days can be ahead of you because once you learn these things, not only does it help with optimizing your health, but it helps with optimizing your life. And so if other people can do it, so can you. And even deeper than that, you know, going back to the spiritual side of things, I do believe in a higher power for sure. And I think sometimes we have these challenges put in front of us to teach us things, but also so we can become the best version of ourselves. Something that I always told myself during the recovery journey was God would not give me something that I can't handle. And there's probably a reason for this. And it may not make sense right now. It's actually really confusing right now when I'm in the storm, but things will make sense down the road. And looking back after having gone through that journey, you know, watching my life from the sidelines for years, but today having no symptoms, being able to travel, exercise, have a global impact, really living my dream life, I can see how the dots connect. And it was just, it's become full circle to see how everything played out. And I'm glad when I was in the trenches that I kind of listened to that voice and just trusted it, that something better was coming and that I never gave up.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was a great piece of hope right there. I'm all about hope. There's always hope in God's kingdom. And so you left us with a treasured truth, which I love so much. Thank you for that. I will be linking your YouTube channel as well as your contact information. But how can they find you? How can our listeners find you? And do you have something that you'd like to offer?
Yeah, I do. So, Michelle, one thing I love about you is you're constantly showing up for your audience, giving massive value. So that inspired me to do the same. I want to give everybody listening here something I've literally never offered before outside of our recovery systems. Never shared it publicly. So it's something I only reserve it for our highest level members. They might actually be upset that I'm giving this away, but I wanted to over deliver for your audience. So it's called a recovery roadmap protocol. This isn't for somebody who just wants a magic pill or a quick fix, right? If you're looking for something that's going to cure you overnight without any effort, it's probably not going to work for you. This is for somebody who is dealing with symptoms like severe brain fog, fatigue, chronic pain. If you're dealing with dozens and dozens of symptoms, like we take in some pretty severe cases, a lot of time that's CFS and long COVID, and you feel like you're doing all the right things, you're following the advice, you're resting when you're told to rest, that nothing is actually moving the needle, and you're just completely confused and frustrated, this is for you. So here's what you have access to. It's a two-part kit or protocol. Part one is the recovery stage identifier. It's a short diagnostic. It shows you exactly where your nervous system sits on the recovery journey for CFS or long COVID. It also shows you why what you've been doing hasn't worked and also what you should probably be focusing on right now. This alone, this is part one. A lot of times that's the biggest relief people felt in months because there's no more guesswork or trial and error. Part two is what I'm most excited about. This is what I debated to include or not, but it's called the personalized recovery report. So this is the exact internal tool we use with our premium clients. It's a detailed, like personalized analysis. It's based on your specific symptoms, activity levels, history, and it shows you what you probably need to change, what you need to double down on, but also the exact order that those changes need to happen in. So it's a decision-making framework for recovery. So here's how to get it. I set up a page specifically for this podcast. and it's at www.cfsrecovery.co/treasure. I just please ask that you don't share it around because this is only for you guys. So once again, it's the recovery stage identifier. If you want that and the personalized recovery report, just head over to www.cfsrecovery.co/treasure and you'll be able to get immediate access to that.
Wow, that is so generous. And yeah, definitely get your hands on that. And all of your information will be linked below in the description and the show notes, both audio and on the YouTube channel, Treasured Wellness. So thank you so much for that because that is such a gift. And I can imagine the hours, weeks, months put into that. So thank you so much for that, Miguel. This has been fantastic. And I know that we could talk for another half hour more. So thank you so much for sharing your time, your expertise, your insight with us today.
Yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Wow, wasn't that so powerful? I just know that the way Miguel poured into us all, I know that it has touched you in some way. And before we wrap up, I want to leave you with this. If you have been feeling tired, overwhelmed, exhausted, foggy, wondering why your body is not responding the way it used to, do not settle for guessing. You have done enough of that. You deserve answers. And that is exactly why I created the Treasured Wellness Whole Health Journal. This guided journal experience helps you to get answers, yes, restore your energy, and confidently steward your health with faith as the foundation. And so, in just a few minutes each day, you will begin connecting the dots between how you feel, the choices you make, the patterns your body has been trying to show you all along, and it will all start to make sense. Because here's the thing, owning your health isn't about perfection. You've heard me say that. We need to pay attention, make intentional choices, partner with God in the stewardship of the body that He has entrusted to you and to me. So if you are ready to stop wondering what your body needs and to start moving forward with greater clarity and confidence in the care for yourself, you can grab your copy through the link in today's show notes or go to treasuredwellness.com/journal. And remember, you are a beautiful treasure. Your body is a temple, so treasure your wellness.